Yes. Okay, so we're up to Teheshen Varegel, the last narrow line at the end of the line. Okay, so yesterday we went into an extended discussion about Kal Vachomer and in whether you can extend the conclusions of the Kal Vachomer beyond the base case, and under what circumstances, and perhaps it matters if that would obviate the need for the Kal Vachomer in the first place. Okay, so and in our Mishnah, the Rav Tarfon used that Kal Vachomer to try to prove that you pay full damages, Nezek Shalim, for Karen if it is in the Rishus HaNizak, in the private property of the damagee. Okay, now, so the Gemara is going to explore other options that the rabbis could have used to reach the same conclusion. The rabbis say you only pay Chatzi Nezek, half damages. So here's some suggestions as why maybe they should agree with Rav Tarfon using other Kal Vachomer. So Teheshen Varegel Chayiv Rishus HaRabim Mikal Vachomer. Now, you could use Shein and Regel in the Rishus HaRabim, in the public domain, use that as the basis of a Kal Vachomer for Karen in the private property. Uma Karen Sherishus HaNizak and Shalom El Chasi Nezek. Karen, which is in private property, you only pay half damages in the case of a tam, Rishus HaRabim Chayeves. But if it's in full damages, if it's in public property, then you're obligated. Hold on one second, I'm sorry. So Karen, according to the rabbis, in private property, that's half damages. Public property, it pays full. So Shein Varegel should Rishus HaNizak Mishalim Nezek Shalim. So Shein and Regel, the other types of damages, which in private property we know that you pay full damages. So certainly in Adin should Rishus HaRabim Chayiv, you should have to pay full damages even in public property. And we know that is it's not the case, right? So if the rabbis hold Chatzi Nezek in Rishus HaRabim for Karen, that leads to inconsistency using this Kal Vachomer. So the answer is number 3.
Move closer to the microphone, please.
Regel, the Torah says the use of the words it destroys in another field. Another field meaning we take that to mean private property, someone else's private property, and all Rishus HaRabim. So in other words, sure, you could have used the Kal Vachomer, but there's a clear custom. The Torah says specifically otherwise. We're not saying that that you should pay for the. It's not a good rebuttal, because we're not trying to say that
move to the microphone
should pay full damages in the Rishus HaRabim. We're only saying that you pay half, right? Or that's what we're trying to derive from a Kal Vachomer, right? So more answers. V'chatzu es kaspo. About Shein and Regel, it says v'chatzu es kaspo, you split the money, right? It's being specific, saying that in this particular case is when you pay half, in the other cases. So that is a way in which we can limit the use of or deny the use of this Kal Vachomer by pointing out a line in the Torah that says, sure, you might have been able to use a Kal Vachomer, but I'm telling you otherwise.
Use the microphone.
Okay, so now we're going to try again. Again, according to the Chachamim, Shein and Regel in private property should only should only pay half damages, although we know that's not the case. But if you use the kal v'chomer, Karen, you should use the following kal v'chomer from Karen. Karen, which in public property you pay the full damages, and in private property you only pay half. So Patura, Shane Regal, where in public property you don't pay at all, right? That's only damages are only liable in private property. So why would you obligate more than what Karen pays in private property? Doesn't that refute the others? So another pasuk which limits the use of prevents the use of that kind of function. I could have said that, but since the Torah says Yishalem about chain and regular, you have to pay Tashlumin Ma'alia. You have to. It's like taking that word to mean a full payment. Which seems a little weak, but to me, but
use the microphone.
Apparently good enough to overcome this attempt of the Kal v'chomer. I'll take Karen. Let's try again with another Kal v'chomer. Chain and regular in private property pays full damages. And in public property you don't pay at all. Karen, Karen, where according to the rabbis you only pay half damages in private property. And certainly, so it's less than. It's less strict than Shane and Regel, so certainly should also be completely not liable in the public domain, but that's not the case. We know that Karen is liable in the public domain. We're going to use another word in the Torah. About Karen, you split the money. Ein chatzi nezek chaluk lo b'reshus harabim v'lo b'reshus hayachid. That it's again, it's unclear how this word is taken to mean this, but it's saying it's a unified law. You don't change it it doesn't change based on whether it's public or private domain. According to the rabbis, it's chassid nezek in either case. For this word, case that's which again, you don't quite get how we're using that word. Doesn't seem to mean what the Gemara is trying to say it means, but that's what where the Gemara wants to go. Try again. V'yehei Adam chayav b'kofer mikal v'chomer. So kofer is if you are the owner of an ox that kills someone, you have to pay an indemnity. I think that would be the right word. Kind of to Kofer is the idea of getting yourself off the hook. Like really, you should be the one to be executed, but instead you pay this Kofer payment. So how would we figure that out? In the case of an ox, remember that when you damage somebody else, if you as a person damage someone else, you have to pay 5 kinds of damages. Nezek, tsar, ripushavos, and boshes. The actual monetary damage you cause the person, and his medical bills, and his time off work, and his any kind of embarrassment and that's about. There's 5, and the pain and suffering. So there's 5 payments you have to make, but that's only if you personally damage somebody, but not if your ox damages somebody. Then it's only nezek. Then it's only the monetary loss of value that you caused. So a person who has to pay these 4 things. An ox doesn't have to pay these 4 extra payments, but has to pay kofer. So a person should certainly have to pay kofer, but we know that's not the case. So again, we're going to resort to a verse in the Torah, which says that you pay kofer whatever is assessed against on you. Allah below Allah. You pay it since it uses the word love, meaning on the ox that caused the damage. That's who pays kofer, but not a person. Okay, so again, the kal v'chomer would have worked, except the Torah specifically tells you how to work. And one last try, v'yehei shor chayav ba'arba dvarim kal v'chomer. So maybe we could go the other way and say that the ox should be liable for the 4 kinds of damage, four extra kinds of damages that we just listed. But we know that the shore is not. And what would the kol v'chomer be? A person who damages another person doesn't have to pay kofar, still has to pay the other four types of payments. So shore who does have to pay the kofar payment, and should certainly have to pay the other thing. We know it's not true. So after we have a pasuk ishba misa. The kofar only applies to when a person damages his friend, his fellow person, right? So follow shobra misa. So it's only again, you could have used the kol v'chomer, but the Torah specifies other. All right. Regel shadarsa al gabi tinok b'chatzar ibailu. That's
Please use the
Regel
microphone.
shadarsa al gabi tinok b'chatzar nisa. You have a shore that through regel,
Can't hear you.
it steps on a child in private property. And the assumption here is that the child is killed. Ma'ushad shalim kofer. Does the kofer payment get made? Okay, so again, that applies to shore, not Adam. This appears to be shore. But do we say, since this is regel, right? This is not where the shore gored the child, it's where he stepped on the child while walking. So do we say that kofar is payable just like it's payable for a shore, the damages through Karen? And Karen Keva David trades plus a zimne, or he Michelle and kofar. With this word, the Karen, once the shore becomes a muad, after two or three times, then it's then we think that this is a killing shore and it has to pay kofar in the case of Karen. For regel, which is like there's no requirement for two or three times. The regel is muad from the beginning, but you would say you should have the same rule, or Dilma, or maybe you could say Karen comes off the difference between the nature of Karen and regel. The animal is intentionally goring, is intentionally trying to damage, but regel is inadvertent. I think this is inadvertent. So Tashma. Okay, so good question. Let's see if we can bring a support one way or the other. Use
the microphone.
Price says if a person brings his oxen to someone else's property without permission, when the gonchol balabais and the ox gores the owner of the property and kills him. A shorbiskila, so the ox gets stoned, which is the sentence for an ox that kills someone. And the owner pays kofar, right? And it doesn't matter if it's a tam or a muad, if it's the first time this shore damaged anyone or not. In the case of the death of the damaged person on his property, you pay kofar. Divrei Rabbi Tarfon. Kofar shalim betam or Rabbi Tarfon minale. So where does Rabbi Tarfon get the idea that you have to pay full kofar for a tam, right? This animal never hurt anybody before, right? And with Karen, the damages are always half damages for a tam. So what shouldn't the kofar also be tam? And pay half kofar. But that's not the case. Rabbi Tarfon says pays full kofar. Well, we should discover maybe it's because he holds like Rabbi Yossi Glili, the Amr who says tam shalim chatzi kofar b'shus harabim. That's an explicit view of Rabbi Yossi Glili. That a tam pays half kofar in b'shus harabim, public property. And he derives that in our case on the private property, you derive it from a kol v'chomer from regel. What would the kol v'chomer be? The Gemara leaves it unsaid, but basically it seems to be that if someone kills if an ox kills someone with shena regel in public property, you pay nothing, right? But for damages, but you pay because it's shena regel, but you pay full kofar, right? So therefore, if you pay half kofar for tam in the public domain, according to Rabbi Tarfon, then the kol v'chomer would indicate that that you would pay full kofar in the private property. Almost, so we see eco kofar b'regel. So if that's the case, then you have a proof that in the case of b'regel, you can pay kofar, right? So our case of the ox that tramples a child does pay kofar. Maybe the Rav Tarfon gets it from the damages of regel. So damages of regel um, in Rishus Hayachid is full payment, and so maybe that's what he applies to our case for and gets full payment of kofar. So Gemara says, well, the kol chomer is not that strong. Bava nizakin deregel shekain yeshnan be'esh. You have okay. So we know that in the case of fire, if your fire kills somebody, you don't pay kofar. We saw that earlier. So since um, since damages have a stricter policy regarding kofar, you cannot use it as the basis of a kal v'chomer, right? Because it is not a kal in the sense it's a chamur. So it's a chamur to chamur, not a kal to chamur. So the Gemara answer is mitulin. But no, you can get it from the hidden thing. So if you have fire burn something that's hidden, it wasn't visible to the lighter of the fire or to the causer of the fire, then that is not payable. So you can get that from regel that tamun in the aish that which you don't pay. That's the kal v'chomer. So or I could say magal tamun shekin yeshna or. But what about so let's not talk about H then. Let's talk about bor. Bor, there's no distinction between hidden and not hidden. So where's the Kalim? We're talking about utensil. There is a something in the damages of the pit of the bor that you don't have to pay for. That is Kalim, which is kind of corresponding to Tamun and hidden things in Aish. So versus Malakalim, she has no Aish. But in the case of fire, you do pay for kalim. So mikalim tumunim. Okay, so what you have to say is you're basing chomer on hidden vessels in the bor. So not only were these kalim in the pit, but they were also concealed from view. And so that kind of thing would neither be liable for them, either for bor or ish. Also, that's fine for bor, but what if a person damages those things? He is responsible. That's why not the kofar the rebbe looks at. So what are you left with? That you have to derive, or Tarfon has to derive his idea of paying kofar shalom in the case of a tam, Karen tam, on private property. He gets it from regel, right? Regel, sure, in this very limited case, but he gets it from regel, and alma ika kofar regel. And so, if that's where he gets it from, then this serves as a roundabout way of showing that guess what? With regel, you do pay kofar. So our original question about if the child is trampled by an ox, his tongue has to pay kofar would be he would have to pay kofar. Shmamina Gemara likes that conclusion. It also makes sense. The e-kofar regel that regel pays kofar, like in the case of that we started with the child. He's not about the flaky kofar regel because if you would say otherwise that you don't pay kofar for regel all the time, and you zakin the regel ma'aseh, and Rav Tarfon gets his rule from regel. Lifrach, you could challenge that. Malan Yuzakin Regel, Shekin Yeshna for Regel. Damages of Regel, which you would have to pay. You can't compare that to kofar, right? We know we kofar the Regel Ma'aseh. So you're proving it from, you can't prove it from the damages from Nazak of Regel. You have to prove it from kofar of Regel. I said, more what it kind of did in that roundabout way. We end up concluding that yes, for the kofar derives his rule about Karen from Regel, from kofar of Regel, meaning that he does hold that the kofar is payable in the case of Regel. Oh, you can come from there. Sure. Okay, so it's reinforce that. Okay, let's person is always considered a muad. Okay, so in the case of an ox, we have presumably for the first 2 or 3 times, the first 2 or 3 times that you only pay half damage is because you know you were damage you didn't know that this ox was going to be a person. There's always a presumption that you always have the responsibility for your own actions. And shogeg, amazing whether you damage accidentally or on purpose. And air ben yashin, whether you're doing it while you're awake or while you sleep, like if you roll over and break something, you're still fully responsible. Simo saying if you put out someone's eye or break someone's vessels, Mishalim doesn't show it. Why do we group these two things together or specify these two examples in the Mishnah, right? Just leave it in the general statement. What do you have to bring the case of blinding someone or breaking their vessels? So there's a reason that the Mishnah specifies that. Very low. Just as in the case of utensils, there's the only damage applies, but you don't have the other things. Vessels don't suffer pain. They don't have medical bills. They don't have embarrassment, and they don't like lose time off of work. So those don't apply to kalim. So the same. Afsimas and chavero nezakin habad very well. If you put out someone's eye unintentionally, then you only pay nezek and not the other types of damages. Where's this from? Where do you get that idea? Investigating it, so you know that even the shogeg, even when you do something accidentally, you're still fully responsible. Chizkiah said, and it was repeated in his name, Amar Kra, Petza Tachas Patza. The Torah says, when it lists, repaying damages, like if you wound somebody, you get a wound in this place. As we know, of course, this is interpreted as a monetary compensation. Why does the Torah have all these? I think it's from the extra. The Torah specifies ayin tachas ayin, shein tachas shein, yad tachas yad, regel tachas regel, petza tachas patza, chabura tachas chabura. Why? So from the extra petza tachas patza, a wound for a wound, that indicates that you are liable for accidental damage as well as intentional damage. Also, if it's completely accidental, you're still or unwilling, you're still liable. So, we already used this phrase, this clause to tell you that you pay for pain even when there's also damage. In other words, that it's an extra payment. It could have left out the word tachas, right? My tachas peso. What does it mean? Say in place of a wound. Shmami no. So you can have you pay for tsar even when you've already paid for mazak, and that you're always liable even if it's accident. Rabba said, we're going to investigate some specific cases of maybe, it is to what degree or is the person really liable. Let's say you had a rock in your lap and you didn't realize it was there, and you stood up and the rock fell down and broke something. So you are liable for breaking whatever it broke. Principle of Adam Muadio. Is very popular, but if the rock, let's say, fell on somebody's toe and broke his toe, you don't have to pay the other types of damages. You only have to pay the nezek damages, not the other four. Le'inyan or Le'inyan Shabbos. What about if it's a Shabbos violation? Like if you're sitting in your yard and you stood up and the rock fell off and into Rishus Harabim, into the public domain. So that's a violation of Shabbos. So Malachas Machshavos Asher Torah. That doesn't, you're not liable for violating Shabbos because only constructive activities are included in Shabbos violations, and this was not for accomplishing any purpose. You need to know the rock was there, so you're not liable for Shabbos violation. Lenient goes, Potter. What about if it killed somebody accidentally? If it kills someone accidentally, then if you kill someone accidentally, you have to go to exile to your mikvah. But in this case, no, you're not liable for that. And the Gemara will analyze that a little further. Leaving on Eved. What about if if you put out the eye of your Eved, you have to set it for you and knock on his tooth. So you stood up, the cloth fell down, your Eved was next to you, and somehow it broke his tooth. You don't have to set the Eved free. Sorry. It's a and look at the real robot. It's an argument. Haresha Hayarabo Rofin. Let's say the master is a doctor. And the slave goes to him for treatment for his eye, and it gets messed up and he loses his eye. Or the master is a dentist and the slave says, can you fix my tooth? And a mishap occurs and the tooth actually has to come out. So the slave has the upper hand here and he gets to go free as a result of this failed medical treatment. Shimon Gamliel says no, it has to be purposeful here. The master was actually trying to save the eye or save the tooth. It came out accidentally, then that is not a basis for the Torah's rule of freeing the slave. Now, we talked about a rock that you didn't know about was in your lap, but let's say you knew the rock was in your lap and you nodded off and fell asleep and you forgot that the rock was there, and then you stand up and the rock falls. So then, Linyan Nizakin Chaim, you are responsible for damages. Linyan Dalad Varim Potter, you are free from the responsibility for the other four things. Linyan Galus Chayev, in that case, it's less accidental, right? In the first case, you never knew that there was a rock in your lap. Let's say you were sleeping and someone put it in your lap, right? So you're totally unaware. In the case where you knew it was there and you forgot, well, that's a mistake that you made. That is the kind of thing that does send you to Golos, to exile if it results in someone's death. Because the Torah says when you go to Golos, when you do something by mistake, meaning that, like, in order to make a mistake, you have to know you have to know something, right? It's not a complete accident. It's not a freak accident. It's something that you forgot, right? You should have remembered. So you are liable for Golos. And you knew about it in the first place. Lenient Shabbos Potter. For Shabbos, same thing. It's like it's no more, just because you knew about it, it's no more constructive activity than it was in the case where you didn't know about it. So you're not going to for Shabbos violation. And we have the same argument between about the slave as it puts in his iron tooth. What if you're throwing a stone on purpose and you meant for it to go only 2 amos, but you didn't know your own strength, or there was a strong wind or something, and it went 4 amos, right? And as a result of going 4 amos, it violated Shabbos or killed somebody or damaged somebody or whatever. But your intention was it shouldn't get that far and it wouldn't have damaged anybody. So regarding Nazak, you're liable because you're always liable. You're not liable for the 4 other kinds of things that requires intention. Starting Shabbos, it's the same thing. Like there's no constructive purpose to the stone being here or there. It has to be for a purpose. Linyan Galus Asher Lot Sodam Rachmana, Pratman Iskavin Lizark Shaim Vizark Arba. The Torah excludes this from the Galus case because the Torah says about Galus when you didn't plan it, right? You didn't plan to make this happen. That here you plan to make something happen. Like you planned to throw the stone, you did have a plan, right? It was an intentional throwing. The killing was accidental, so that is exactly the case in which you do go into Galus. And if you put out the eye of the slave, then it's the same machlokes. Now, what about another case? What if you second? So there's a minor difference here when you intended to throw it 4 amos, right? And then 8 amos. So the only difference here, I think, is going to be Shabbos, right? Linyan is Zakin Chayev, Linyan Dalmador Prater, same as before. Linyan Shabbos, the Omer Kol Makom Shatir Set to the Wachin. So then it depends. If when you're throwing it, you're like, where I just want to throw this stone, I don't care where it lands, then you are liable because you intended to throw it 4 amos. So 4 amos is the minimum. I guess now we're not talking between Rishus Hayat and Rishus Harabim, we're talking about in Rishus Harabim, right? And throwing it 4 amos is exactly the minimum that you're prohibiting. So the fact that it went further, like you don't care, right? You intended to throw 4 amos. It went at 8 amos, which is fine with you. You really wanted it to go at least 4 amos. But but if you specifically were trying to, let's say you're playing basketball, okay, and your only intention is for the ball to go in the hoop, which is 4 amos away, and you threw it over the backboard instead. Well, that's not constructive to you. That's not, you didn't. You have no interest in the ball going over the backboard. Your only interest is in going into the hoop, which is 4 amos away. So therefore, it's not a malachas Shabbos in that case, and you're not liable for Shabbos violation. Currently described as Garbo is actual. It's the same as the 2 and 4 case. 2 amos or 4 amos. You're excluded because this is not what you planned. And like and the same argument applies about the answer. Rabba also said Zara Kli. Is this a good place to stop actually? No, let's continue. You threw something off of a roof. And somebody else was walking along with a stick, and the utensil hits the stick, or you hit the utensil in midair as it's falling off the roof. Potter. The guy with the stick is not liable. My Tama, why? Because we know that thing is on its way to being broken when it hits the ground. So you came along and broke it earlier. It's like you're breaking a vessel that was already broken.
There was an episode of the
Sorry, say again, John?
There was an episode of the NBC TV series Homicide where someone jumped off a tall building to commit suicide, but he was actually killed by accident by someone shooting through a window, not knowing that the guy was falling down. So it's a similar case.
Okay. What if you threw something off the roof, but it was going to land in a soft place and not necessarily break? So Ubacher Vasilkan or Kodam Vasilkan Potter, and then someone else comes while it's falling, and removes the mattress, right, the cushion. So the blow is not going to be. So when the thing gets to the ground, it is going to break because someone else has removed the soft material. Then Potter, that that person is not liable. My Tama, why be that the Shade because I'm sorry, the person is not liable, it's the one who threw it, right? So because when he threw it, the conditions were such that it wasn't going to break. Somebody else took those away and indirectly caused them to break. That's not your problem. Which is a little strange to me because if you're going to say Adam Mu'adiyallah, like you try to take responsibility for your actions, you should foresee that something might happen. So I'm not sure why that's an exception. Yamarama, Zark Tinok Merosh Hagad, Ubach Rabikibla Beside. This is what Charlie was talking about. He threw a child off the roof, and somebody else is walking by with the sword in the air, and the child is impaled. What could Rabbi, so who's responsible? What could Rabbi Judah and Sarah this is a argument between Rabbi Judah and the rabbis, the Tanya. They have a brisa about a similar case. Hiku asar b'nei adam b'asar machlos. 10 people are beating somebody up. Ben v'asachos, ben v'zachos. Whether they're all attacking them at once or serially. Kulan Katuri. They're all off the hook because the effort of any individual one is presumably not enough to have killed the person. It's only their combined effort that causes him to die. Rabbi Yehuda says no. It's the last. If it's serial, then the last guy, like nobody killed him yet. The last guy who delivers the final blow that kills him is the one who's responsible. Because even if the wounds were already mortal, this guy hastened his death, and as we've seen in other cases, it's the the act of shortening someone's life by any amount is considered for Moshe of a key level kind of. What about the case of so that sheds light on the question of the child falling on the sword. That's when there's the same focus, right? That is it like the child's going to die anyway, so the rabbis would say the guy is thrown off the roof is liable, and Rabbi Sarah would say it's the last guy who caused the injury with the sword that he's responsible. What if instead of the sword, it's an ox walking by and the child is impaled on the ox's horns? Plukta Rabbi Shmuel ben Osho Rabbi Yochanan ben Beseira ben Barak of Rabbanan. This is an argument between Rabbi Shmuel and the rabbis. Netanya, we have another brisa. Nasan pidyon nafsho domain nisa. When the Torah says that you have to pay kofar, that is what is the measure for the kofar, like the value of whose life are you paying for? So it's the value of the victim. Shmuel says the name of the value of the killer, or the owner of the ox, the mazik, the one who is causing the damage. So. So the liability of the ox for kofar depends on this dispute between Rabbi Shmuel and rabbis, and you can apply that to the like according to Rabbanan, where you say it's the value of the victim that you pay kofar, you don't pay any kofar here because the child is going to die anyway because it's falling off the roof. So there's no value for Rabbi Shmuel. You do pay kofar because you pay kofar based on the value of the damager. The damager, he has the same value as before, so you do pay kofar. Okay, our Bava. Okay, I guess we'll stop here. So, okay, we pick it up here tonight.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Can't even hear the guy. Can't even hear him.
Yeah, I couldn't hear half of it.
Couldn't hear him.
Yes.
He didn't use his microphone. Just couldn't hear him.